Welcome to the All the Hats We Wear podcast. You need a system for managing and developing the different hats that you wear. And even more importantly, the hats you want to be wearing but aren't. My name is Scott Snow, and I created a work-life balance course to help you identify your roles, clarify your goals, uncover your mission, manage your large projects, and unleash your creativity. You're meant to do great things. Let's talk about the skills you need to do them. I wanted to start by congratulating UConn women's basketball team for winning their 12th national championship. I watched the game and I really enjoy the UConn women's game. I like WNBA as well, and I like the UConn men's. We've seen their games as well, and that's a lot of fun. Tonight is the men's final, so I'll be watching that in about a half hour. I remember Coach Gino, I read a book about him or by him, and I really respect, I actually really follow coaches. When there's a coach that no matter where they go, they make a big difference, I really like to follow that coach. Bill Belichick, now he's going to UNC college football, so I'm really curious to see what he can do there. And Coach Gino, of course, one of the greatest. And I remember one quote that stuck out from his book, and that was that he says, so we don't practice till we get it right. We practice till we can't get it wrong. Or maybe that was an interview question, but pretty powerful statement. Just getting the mechanics down so well that you can't even possibly mess it up. This past weekend, I went to Portland, Maine, to a conference, a music therapy conference for the New England region. And it was a lot of fun. I went to a lot of excellent workshops, made some good contacts and network, and it was just a good time to refresh and start again and get recharged like always. And I possibly could even have a business coach, entrepreneurial coach. I'm trying to see if I can make that happen. And, one thing that's really awesome, even before meeting with a coach, because I do contract with someone else for supervision. And it's great to get someone who has a lot more experience. And one of the nicest things is that when you're planning your session together, that you have to get your act together. You've got to get all your ideas out, and it's really helpful in that way. In fact, just preparing to make an email to this person, write an email, I came up with a goal that was so specific and clear. It was awesome. But I hadn't been, I have been stuck. I haven't thought of anything as clear. And I told this person that my goal was to sell 50 decks. That's my course, All the Hats We Wear deck course, at $25 each and sell 50 of them per month. That's my goal right now. So it really helps. You got to get all your ducks in a row to get ready for your meeting. And also I started to think that I had been, I think, getting stuck by thinking, well, what is this post going to give me? What am I going to get out of it? What sales am I going to get from doing this video or this podcast or whatever? And I had to start to think, could I substitute that effort and that feeling, and sometimes it's not a very good empowering feeling when you're like, you want to get sales, you have that gimme energy. And what if I replace that with just doing a better job? Actually engaging my creativity, tapping my real resources, thinking different, putting out a better post, a better picture on Instagram that shows something that is actually really helpful to someone I might reach. So it's just kind of a switch. It's not really doing any extra time. I'm just saying, instead of kind of worrying and being kind of being a putz about it, think positively, work harder in a new way. So that's kind of my focus right now. I wanted to share it with you. One of the workshops I attended at this conference was how to use rap in music therapy. And the guy was awesome. I'll put a link to his album. His name is Royal the Rapper. He gave one of the best workshops of the weekend, I thought. Whereas before I was very stuck with rap and I felt like I wasn't very good at it, he gave a formula, like identify the theme and then create some keywords and then brainstorm some words that rhymed with your keywords. And an essential piece is having that hype group with you. So if he had a small group, it would be maybe 5 people together, but 4 of them would be the hype squad, and their job is just to give some enthusiasm, give some feedback and encouragement. If the person who's rapping says something kind of interesting, they go, "Yeah, all right, yeah, mm-hmm," or they do the whole all their reactions. And it's a lot of fun, and it urges that person to take some more chances. It's really a powerful thing, and I had totally missed that. Now that I think of it, when I see videos of like rap battles, I see the audience is really involved, but I never really thought of it as being a huge benefit for the rapper. It actually reminds me of my jazz improvisation teacher at college, Professor Yusuf Latif, who is my favorite professor of all time. He was awesome. And he was just so encouraging, and he was one of the most accomplished professors there. But the funny thing is, he had just a tiny little office. Actually, it wasn't even an office. It was a practice room with a piano in it, with all the other practice rooms at the end of the hall. And I honestly thought it was kind of a shame that he got that little crappy office because he was so awesome. He played with Mingus, Coltrane. I mean, he's won Grammys. He was awesome. But he was so nice and encouraging. And my first jazz lesson, or he didn't approve of the word jazz, so it was improvised music. But the first lesson was him on piano and I was on the jazz vibes playing the blues. And as I was trying to noodle around and figure out what notes of the blues scale to make a solo on, to improvise on, he started to go, mm-hmm, yeah, uh-huh. And he was urging me along by having those little sounds because I wanted to please him. And he was doing that. And he was giving me instant feedback. And that's a similar thing with the hype squad for rap. So, pretty important lesson I learned from that. One thing when I go away on this trip or a vacation or the campground, to be honest, when I'm really honest, I really like my routines. When I'm home, I have refined the way I use my All the Hats productivity system or work-life balance system, and I like to use that. I like my routines. I like doing transcendental meditation on my little green chair. But when you're away, you don't have that. So when I was at the conference, I wanted to do my transcendental meditation. I had a little time, so I just did it in one of the lobby areas. And it was a little strange because there was a guy, 10 feet in front of me, and there were people kind of milling around, and there was kind of a brighter light than I'm used to. But I did it, and I'm glad that I tried to keep that routine going. Since we're talking about work-life balance, the other day I saw a social media post from someone, and she was talking about her young children, and her point was that you don't need a village to raise a kid. That her point was if as long as you have a good dad and a mom, that you could. And of course, yeah, I mean that's essential. But I disagree with this statement. I think more and more, the more that you can relinquish your control and hand it over to worthy people, people that you trust and that are doing a good job, then that enhances the experience for the kid. You can't cling to every little thing. I enjoy when, the boy's grandfather likes to bring them golfing. I honestly hate golf. So this is great. Go have fun, play golf. I don't need to be uh, straggling along and trying to, be in charge all the time. And it's a feeling of relinquishing that is enjoyable actually. Now, it's not saying that I'm giving up my dad role or anything like that. You're just facilitating. And it's okay to back away. Their cousin likes to bring them to Celtics games, or their uncle, or their friends will bring them to a hockey game or motocross. This is all good stuff. You can't do it all. So I do believe that you need a village to raise a kid. You need the teachers, you need neighbors, you need everybody. I'm not into politics for this podcast, but I do like to comment on leadership. And I'm from Massachusetts, so our mayor from Boston is Mayor Michelle Wu, and I follow her in the news. I respect her. She has this quiet intelligence that she brings, a calm, smart way that I really find intriguing and attractive. She just had an infant, she just had a baby, so she always has that baby with her, sleeping on her chest, and I just like this. Of course, she has a whole staff too. She has advantages that the average person doesn't really have. But I like the idea of involving the kids in your work, in your passions. I think it's good. Involve your kids in your dreams and your passions. My son actually helped me with the lighting for this little set that I made, so I made sure to involve the kids. They gave me the ring light and helped me pick out this light in the background, and I got the logo for the wall. So it is enjoyable, I think. One other thing I'm into now is called the Arc screenwriting software. It's a program, I think it was $60 that you get a one-time fee, and it's on my laptop, and now I can write basically a screenplay. I've mentioned before that one of my creativity tools, exercises that I do, is the called word salad, where basically you take 10 new vocabulary words or uncommon words and try to fit them into a short little wild story. And I have a bunch of different stories going on at the same time, almost like in Star Wars where you have a cliffhanger or like a comic book. This person's really in trouble, and then we switch to story number two and what's happening there. So it's a nice format of building up tension and then releasing it. So I use that Arc software. So I recommend having some kind of little hobby like that. I call it my daily crossword puzzle. And it really gets me thinking creative. It doesn't have to be fancy or long, it's pretty short. Have those things, those little things that you tinker with every day. I think that's really fun. I'm not planning on getting it published or sending it away to try to get a movie. It's too zany for that. But I like to polish it up every day. Doesn't take much time. Find things like that in your life for great work life balance because they don't take much time and they're very rewarding and fulfilling. Another workshop that I attended was about starting a private practice for music therapy. And the person who presented referenced the book The Artist Within by Julia Cameron. I remember this book from probably 20 years ago, and she talked about the morning pages as being a great way to beat the writer's block. And that's you just get in a habit, similar to my word salad exercise. Every morning, you write 3 pages of your morning pages, it's called, and you just get the pen moving and you never stop. You don't edit, you don't do anything. It could just be blab, blab, blab. I'm talking a lot of blab. I've got coffee over here, and there's sugar that's spilled on the floor. It doesn't matter what you say, but the idea is to just keep the flow going and not self-edit. And that's an important lesson. The other point that this presenter was making was that in the book they talk about 3 other lives. If you were to be 3 other people, where it didn't matter what, you know, requirements to be this occupation or this other type of person, what would they be? And some people said, emergency room doctor, a chef, a travel blogger, food reviewer. I said Navy SEAL, mixologist, and best-selling author. Either was librarian, an astronaut. So it's kind of a fun, just a thinking big kind of thing. But also with this all the hats we wear method, I think you could take it a step further because by assuming different roles that you're not playing, this is what I call a placeholder role, like let's say philanthropist. Now, am I giving millions every year and going to black tie events, with all the celebrities? No, but I can give them my time and I can contribute in a lot of different ways. So basically, you see what would be required, what attributes would be required to be an emergency room doctor. Well, you'd have to be able to thrive in adversity. You'd have to work on adrenaline. You want to make powerful difference and help. You want to be a team player and you want that intensity. Those all could translate to a lot of different roles. And my fascination with the Navy SEALs, because they're pretty badass, what you could generalize is just being the best at what you do, being persistent, being relentless. Those are all good things that you could put into your life. One of my skills and one of my secrets to creativity is being passionate about reading the news. And I read the Boston Globe, the New York Times, and then on the weekend I read also the Wall Street Journal edition, weekend edition. So I do this because this is a lot of different subjects that come your way. You can be inspired by a lot of different things. And of course, there's a lot of bad news, but you can flip that on its head and find what's inspiring about it as well. So I always like the news. What I do is read through it and then save the link in a Google Doc, well, a Google sheet, Google Excel sheet. And then I always have that link and I can search by category. Just in the last week, here are some things that I linked, some articles that I linked that were pretty creative, that got the juices going. No matter where it ends up, I have these ideas. The soundtrack to the White Lotus TV show was really pretty cool. I was reading about that. There was an obituary with a woman who was a code breaker for World War II. I'm always fascinated with the Navajo code breakers and what is it, cryptology, cracking codes. There was a obituary about a NASA scientist who became a golf putting coach using his physics and science to do that. There was a book that sounded interesting called Sky Daddy, written by Kate Folk, which is about a woman who gets turned on by airplanes and being flying in the air. Christina Ricci was interviewed and talked about her tarot deck called Cat Full of Spiders, and I'm interested in tarot decks. There was a guy who was hired to rebrand Yahoo and bring them back, so I'm always curious about the business sense. How can this guy bring them back? Something about Saltburn, the movie, which is now a cult classic, and they even have parties where people dress up as characters. And I saw a couple scenes that looked pretty strange, but I'm interested when it becomes a thing that people are celebrating. Now people are dressing up as characters and having a big party. That's cool. I was reading about the mob wife trend on TikTok, and that sounds fun. I was reading about the Unabomber's manifesto, and I'm always intrigued by someone who's evil yet brilliant. Then I was reading about the Buena Vista Social Club musical, and I really want to see that. There was an article featuring the actress Felicia Rashad, who was Mrs. Huxtable in the Cosby series. I always found her to be very classy and impressive. Well, now she's a director of a Broadway show, a play called Purpose. And in the article, she was saying how she oversees every aspect of the production, but she tries to galvanize all these different creative energies from her whole different varying staff and galvanizes them all in alignment. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And she says that she aims to create an environment where actors feel freed from their temptations of ego. And she believes that a performance should be an act of selfless devotion and not like her being an actress trying to wow people and trying to make them be impressed at how brilliant she is. You have to let go of that ego and just be of service. And she also said that when our work is understood and performed as an offering, which has a real spiritual sense to it, then it takes on greater significance. Being an offering, like being in church, instead of, look at me, this is what I can give you. A very subtle but huge difference. And that I like to apply to my business as well. I would like to emulate that for sure. Well, in closing, one takeaway is that as we create this list of our roles, And in my last episode, episode 127, I shared all of my current roles, all 22 of them, or 20 of them. So, but my next point is that as you identify these roles, you kind of see like a big separation between them all. The goal really, when you start embracing this all the hats we wear system and living that system, then you start to dissolve those borders between your different roles. And it's just kind of all flat horizon. And you're basically just generating ideas everywhere, and everything is like um, like Felicia Rashad said, it galvanizes all these different energies into one. And I think you could do that with all of your different roles. Once you do that, all the circuits start connecting and firing, and everything is integrated. And then it all leads to just being more joyful, productive, and fulfilled. If you'd like more information on this deck I was talking about, it comes with a almost a 50, no, almost an hour long video in 5 modules that walks you right through the whole course. And you get the deck, and then you basically just go through all of these action steps that get you focusing on the different hats that you wear. And once you do that, you have all these cards out like solitaire, so you can get some perspective of your whole busy life. And then start creating your mission statements for all of your roles so you really know your purpose. And also, then you start to get some goals that are very concrete so that you can work on those. And then there's a whole section on being more creative, unleashing your creativity, which has a great habit of starting an audio journal, which in itself can be life changing for you and life transforming. How? Because it's done that for me. So there's a lot in there, a lot of unique, interesting ideas that I haven't seen anywhere else. So I recommend you checking it out at allthehatswewear.com. I look forward to meeting you soon. Bye bye.